Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, depending on what part of the world you are located in. It is afternoon here in sunny Aiken, South Carolina, 4:30 in the afternoon. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully you all can hear me. I hate when speakers do this, but all of us wonder, we don't want to go through an entire session and then realize nobody can hear us. So if a couple of you wouldn't mind, if you can hear me, just let me know. Thank you. Very good. Okay. Um, Great. Thanks, you guys. Um, awesome. Awesome. So um, this is slight retooling of the webinar series that I've been doing since November. Uh, in November, we called it Extending Infusionsoft, and we were doing it every other week. And it was more code based. We were actually diving into code, and which was great for some people, but lost others. So or if it didn't lose them, it scared them off, or they didn't even come in the first place because they thought, ooh, code. So what I've done more recently is I've split these up. We now do two webinars every week, one on Thursdays at 4:30 p.m., which is now called the Infusionsoft API Mastermind, which is this one. And this is really a project showcase to really get you to be thinking about what is possible with Infusionsoft. And the various tools that are available to you outside of Infusionsoft itself to make those things happen. And then, just so that you know, the other one we do is Sunday uh, afternoons, my time, Eastern time, 5 p.m. I think we do, and that is called the API Cooking School, or cooking class. And in the API Cooking class, we actually go through one recipe together. In each class, starting with the very most basic. For example, one week we do, how to add a contact. Another last week, I think we did how to add and remove a tag from a contact using the API. So in those, we're actually learning how to, write the code, and these were really just looking at the broader project concept. So this is more universally applicable to those of you who don't really have any interest in writing code, but you would like to know what's possible. So today's topic is what we are calling appointment bliss. And for lack of a better word, and the reason I'm calling it appointment bliss is because generally, when we're talking about appointments, the consensus is, I think, that there is no bliss. and and what I mean by that is that, well, we at the API guys, we like to say that we make Infusionsoft do what it won't. And when it comes to appointments, there are a number of things that Infusionsoft just won't do. Sort of surprising things in some cases. You would sort of expect that it would, but it doesn't. And so therefore you have to use some persuasion and some coding to be able to get it to do what you want. So this particular project that I'm going to discuss with you today, what we call appointment bliss, very interesting, but not uncommon scenario. Okay, there's really kind of three, I'll call it three different pieces to this project. Okay, so the challenge was as follows. Number one, this particular client, and by the way, this is a project that we are working on currently. We are almost finished with it, like within days of delivering it. Um, so this particular client is interesting, but probably not unique in that he needs to be able to take appointments both inside the Infusionsoft app and online. And he was very clear and very adamant about that. Okay. So right now you with the existing plugins that are out there, taking whether it be Time Trade or Appointment Core, and Time Trade linked with Time Fusion, taking appointments online not a problem. Taking appointments in Infusionsoft, a bit of a problem. Being able to do both, very definitely a problem. Let's not call it a problem, a challenge to be solved and overcome, which is what I like doing. I love these are like puzzles that I get to put together. So that was issue number one, and I'll explain a little bit more deeply why those are challenges here in just a second. The second challenge that we had was that he wanted to be able to send um, text messages to his appointments 2 hours prior to the appointment. And any of you who know Infusionsoft well and how their field timers work, you can't do that. You could do the next morning. You could do, and you can't. You can kind of do it, but you can't do it exactly. And he wants it to be able. He wants every single person. It works if you're like a webinar and where everybody's at the same time. But when everybody's different times, it doesn't work because the closest you can get is one day before, right? So that was also an issue to be solved. And let's see, what was the other one? So the third one, which is kind of the subset of the first one, is that you have to be able to sync these appointments both ways in Google Calendar, because Google Calendar is sort of the go-between on Time Trade and Appointment Core and Infusionsoft. So we had to be able to create a two-way sync. So these were the challenges that the client came to us with. Basically, so the scenario is this: his very often his assistants will make appointments, and when they make appointments for him, they're going to use My Day. Okay, he wanted to use My Day. That was the other thing that was kind of specific. However, clients will also on their own. So this column right here that you're looking at, manual appointments. Okay, down the line, this is his assistant. Okay, making appointments, rescheduling appointments, canceling appointments in My Day. Down on the left hand side, this is his clients online, who are also scheduling, rescheduling, and canceling appointments. Okay. Second thing that he wants to be able to do is he wants to be able to run campaigns off of those, regardless of which direction they come from. So we need to be able to send reminders, reschedule notices, respond when someone is a no-show, etc. We need to be able to specifically send a text message an hour before. We need to keep these synced in both directions. Okay, so that is basically, and when we achieve that, that's what we're calling appointment bliss, right? So let's just talk about this and the specifics of how we go about it. Let me just show you first though a little bit about what I'm calling the challenge. This is a sandbox account. It was interesting. I will tell you that when Infusionsoft introduced My Day, I never really spent any time in it. If they it's actually got quite a lot. It's really, I mean, when I first went in here, I was like, wow, this could be really quite nice if they really beefed this up just a little bit. Now there's another piece that I left out. So the other thing is that in my client's particular case, he has different types of appointments, right? So he has follow-up appointments, he has initial consultations, and the sequences that we were going to send needed to be different. We also needed to be able to send emails and sequences if they didn't show up for an appointment as well, right? So that just added yet another kind of wrinkle into it. So one of the things that we ran into right out of the gate here is, as some of you may know, so if I go here in calendar from My Day, and I say I want to add a new appointment, just put over here. So from here, I can actually get to this thing called action type. And although I don't have these set up for in his app, these were his, consult and his follow up and so forth. And so we decided that in order to so you can get to those here, okay, if you use the calendar, right, to set this appointment. However, if I just do it from here, which is kind of convenient because this way, he's got his calendar in front of him. Strangely enough, or I don't know why, but if I add an appointment here in my day without actually going to the calendar, oh, how about that? Actually, that's interesting. I would have sworn that those were, oh, because I'm still in the calendar. Hello. Here in my day, add, right? There we go. This one that drops down, okay, has no appointment type, has no activity type, which is kind of interesting. You would think it would. So from here, which is kind of where he wanted his assistants to be working, okay, he couldn't do that. So what we did is, the first thing we did is we kind of said, all right, well, look, we're gonna create a syntax here that says, what it is in the title and so forth, and then we'll set it after the fact. But that was one of the challenges we had also. Now the other thing is, regardless of where I make this, whether I make it here, whether I make it on the calendar, or whether I make it here on the contact, right? You guys probably know this. If I set an appointment here, add appointment, right? The problem is, again, same thing, same screen, right? The problem is that when I make this appointment, it's not this information is not available to Campaign Builder. It is nowhere to be found. Okay. So that's the other challenge. How am I going to run sequences off of this information when I make these appointments, they are just stuck there in Infusionsoft, and they're not in any kind of custom field or anything that Infusionsoft Campaign Builder can work with. Okay. So that was kind of our issue. So let's look at how we solved the issue. Okay. So I started to take you. This is sort of our standard format now for how we plan projects, and so if you look, so this is the client making their own appointments. Okay, this is his assistant making appointments in Infusionsoft. This is Infusionsoft. This is Time Trade and Google Calendar. So let's just look at what's going to happen here, and we'll just start here at number one here, this line right here. So let's take this scenario where the assistant puts in a appointment using My Day. Okay, so she goes in, she puts in the appointment. Now, what she's going to do is, the first thing she's going to do is she's going to specify the activity type. And for us, what we did, just to make it easy so that they could work from wherever they wanted to, if she was working in the calendar, I assume it's a she, by the way, if she's working in the calendar and she makes that appointment, she's going to choose in the action type whether it's again, this is just one of our sandbox apps, but she would have here follow up, initial consult, no show, etc. And she could choose that. But the other thing that we do, so that if she wanted to, she could do it from over here in My Day, is she can also just here say, follow up, well, like that, follow up Tom Smith, and we will pick this up programmatically and later and assign it. So she didn't have to worry about where she was working. She could work from either place. As long as she put this in here, we would pick that up. Okay, so that's step number one. She enters it in My Day wherever she wants to, or actually, for that matter, in the contact itself. She includes the activity type, either as a tag and or as the activity type drop down. Now, what we do here is this box. What we're going to do here is we're running something called a cron, and a cron is a script that runs in the background. And all of you, if you've been on calls with me before, you know that I've said all of your web servers have cron. And what cron does is it just runs a script on a schedule. Okay, so for example, you can run it depending on what your server limitations are. You can run it, every 5 minutes. You can run it the last day of the month. You can run it once a year. You can run it, at 20 past the hour, every hour. You can pretty much set any kind of cron schedule you can think of, and it'll just at whatever schedule you set up on your server, it'll run the script that you. It's almost like a post, an HTTP post snippet that just runs over and over and over and over again, basically, is one way to think of it on a schedule. Okay. So what we have is we have a cron sitting out there running periodically. And what it's doing is it's looking for a new appointment. And it knows that because every time an appointment is created or updated, it gets a timestamp. So it knows, because we make sure it knows. The script knows when was the last time it ran. And so all it does is it goes out here and it says, okay, so what's been done? What's either been updated or created since the last time I ran? And so it grabs those. And by the way, it's going to do the same thing down here for reschedules, and the same thing down here for cancels. Okay. In each case, these are all these are a cron that's sitting here working. Okay, because that's really the only way. Infusionsoft doesn't have any kind of a trigger here on this, that says new camp. When this is updated, when an appointment is updated, do this, right? So you've got to do it on cron. You've got to actually go look for it. Okay, we're going to look. Oh, look, a new appointment. Great. So when that happens, then the script does a couple of things depending on what the scenario is. In this case, what it's going to do is it's going to grab those fields, meaning, and by fields, I mean back to an appointment. That's a task, Kim, not an appointment. Here we go. So it's going to grab the title and the date and the time and description and so forth. And it's going to put those in custom fields in the contact record. Okay. We're also going to humanize the date. For those of you who don't know what humanized date is. So if you have a date field, it might be 3/27/2014 for 48 p.m. Right. But to humanize it, right, we turn it into a text. Some people call it a pretty date. Okay. So you might say, instead of 3/27, you say March 27th, so that you can merge it into your email templates and have it sound normal, so it look like it's been, written, instead of a merge field. So, we do a couple of, a number of different things, make about, 5 or 6 different fields here: a time, a date, a pretty date, etc. Okay. And we add those to the contact record. And we do that because the campaign builder is actually set up to run, then it triggers the campaign, and the campaign builder, which triggers the reminders and so forth, right, is set up to run off of that date field. So now I can run off of a field timer. Okay. Now the other thing that we're going to do in here, which is not specifically, you have to actually, click down through this. Each one of these actually has a bunch of stuff under it. And so we were in a clickable version where we could click down through this, and see the campaign that we're going to run here. One of the things that you're going to see is that it sends a text, okay, to the client 2 hours before their appointment. Okay. Now, and we have plans to actually do some pretty cool things with that text, but I want to just show you a little something. Now, everybody probably knows that you have a number of possibilities for text, right? You have Fix Your Funnel, I believe has text capabilities. You have Social Fuse. You have, I believe you actually have a couple actually. So let's just, I'm not picking on Fix Your Funnel. But so let's just look at Fix Your Funnel for a second. So the issue here with Fix Your Funnel is for me. Oops, let's go to pricing. And this is the problem that I run into personally. Now this is a personal thing, okay? And I fully, some people, they don't care, it doesn't bother them at all. But for me, whenever I'm looking at, do I use a plugin? Do I use something that someone's already written, or do I write it myself? There's a couple of issues that I want to consider. One is that just it's a fact of life that every person that you give your API key out to increases your security risk. So you have to say to yourself, number one, is it worth the increased risk to give my API key out to yet another plugin provider? Or do I keep it in house? So that's one issue. Okay. The other issue is that most of these things, whether you're talking about a membership site or these Fix Your Funnel, or even a WordPress plugin for that matter, very often they do 20 or 30 things, right? And for those of you who use WordPress, like everybody recommends there's two well-known SEO plugins. Yoast is one of them, and then I can't call the name of the other one, but anyway, everyone knows which one I'm talking about. It's the one done by Simplify Software. But the problem is those things do 50 things, right? And actually what I really want them to do is an XML sitemap, and that's it. I want to, because I'll take care of the rest of it. So, so I get bloat when really all I need is an XML sitemap. So kind of I have the same issue here in this particular case, which is that, either I got to pay, and again, I'm not picking on Fix Your Funnel, right? But I got to pay $49 a month or $79 a month or 4 cents a text, or, when really all I want is just this text ability. That's it. I don't want all the rest of this mess. I don't care about any of this. Okay. So I'm paying a lot of money for features that I don't use. And that is when I will typically say, okay, well, when that's the case, I'm just, if I possibly can, I'm just going to write it myself. Okay. So that's what we did here. And for a number of other cases we're working on, this is one example. This happens to be the one we're using for this appointment Bliss, but there's another one as well. This is called Tel API. Quite fascinating, right? With their API, you can build your own telephony application. Literally, right? You can build your own IVR system. You can build your own phone tree. You can build, group messaging, customer notifications, conference calls, call routing, all kinds of crazy stuff with their API. And the nice thing about it is, if you look at their pricing, and the other one we use, which is Tropo, is very, very similar pricing. There's no monthly fee. I pay $1 a month for a phone number and 1 cent a message, right? So that's better. That's better. And I don't have to mess with all that other stuff. Okay. All I got to do is, use their API to send my text messages. That's it. $1 for the phone number, 1 cent a month. Okay. So in this case, what we chose to do, mainly because we didn't need all the other functionality, the conversations and the this and the that offered by all of the other add-ons that you find in the marketplace, all of which do a great job at what they do. Just were overkill for us here is in these follow-up sequences that text messaging is happening through Tel API at 1 cent per text. Okay. So that's how we're handling, driven off of the field timer. Okay, so that's what happens there. Then, so we add these to the custom fields. We trigger the campaign here. But the other thing that we do, taking this yet just one more step farther, okay, is we're also going to use Google's API. To add that appointment to Google Calendar. And the reason we're going to do that is because that Google Calendar is the one that Time Trade uses, right? To and Time Fusion then uses to get things to Infusionsoft. And so if I don't take the appointments, which are scheduled here manually, and put them in the Google Calendar, then when someone goes to the Google Calendar or to Time Trade to do their own scheduling, the free busy won't be correct, right? It'll show as free because this appointment hasn't been put in the Google Calendar, right? So in order to keep the information accurate for these people who are doing their stuff online, we also have to add these appointments over into the Google Calendar that Time Trade is using. Okay, so we do that. And then the other thing that we're doing is just as an internal thing, is we're storing that event ID from the Google Calendar so that in a custom field back here, so that when somebody over here needs to reschedule or cancel, we can go back to the Google Calendar and use a API call to perform the appropriate action without having to go find that again, right? So that gets a new appointment all the way through to Google Calendar. Okay. So our campaign's running. We got our information in our custom fields. Great. Now, what happens on from the other side when someone just goes to the client's website and schedules their own new appointment? Okay. Well, in this case, this is a case where the the apps and the applications that are available actually did the job perfectly, right, for what we wanted, so we just use them. No point reinventing the wheel. So what we're using here is we're using a combination of Time Trade and Time Fusion. And I noticed that Bill Jenkins, who's the fabulous developer of Time Fusion, is on this webinar. Thanks for being here, Bill. So we looked at Appointment Core, which was the other option. We chose Time Trade. And so what happens is Time Trade, you can, now in this case, we are actually, you can do this two ways, just so that you know. One way is you can actually just put a link all over the website, just saying, click a link to schedule an appointment with me. This particular client doesn't do that. They don't want just anybody scheduling an appointment with them. So what happens is Time Trade also has a link that can be emailed. Okay, like most of them do. So so what we do instead is, as they're sending out either as they're qualifying new leads coming in and they decide that, yeah, this person's worth, this person is someone I would be wanting to work with, then they'll send them the link as part of a campaign, a prospecting campaign. Or because they have an ongoing relationship with them, they're getting that link in the in the emails. It's happening online, but it's actually not happening for them on their website. It is actually happening in as email clicks. But still could be a new appointment here because it's a lead, right? So potentially, so let's say that they get a prospecting email, they click the link to schedule a new appointment. Time Trade, what Time Trade does automatically is it puts it in Google Calendar. For those of you who don't work with I think everybody kind of knows how Google Calendar works, right? Well, the lovely thing about Google Calendar is that it has an API, and so what Bill and his Time Fusion add-on then do is you got to set it all up the right way, but then when you set it up the right way, and you set up Infusionsoft the right way, then Time Fusion comes over here. And I guess I probably really should have drawn a line over here, because Time Fusion takes that appointment from Google Calendar. I should just annotate this, because really I should have, I knew where it was going, I didn't. But truthfully, right, we'll just put some little arrows here. Okay, so what's really happening is, okay, I have arrows. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, but you get the idea. Text, thought, note, signature. Yeah, not really. Okay, so I can draw a line though. Okay. Oh yeah, arrow. Sweet. Okay, like this, like this. Okay, so Time Fusion takes it from Google Calendar and sticks it in the custom fields that in Infusionsoft for the, and then same thing, right? The campaigns are all hooked to that. Everything works hunky dory. So the only trick here was that we had to make well, that's actually not right. We had to make the custom fields that we set up and were writing to here match what Bill was doing with Time Fusion going here. So because they're using the same fields, these things are being written to the same places, right? So it all works. Okay. So what's happening is essentially a two-way sync of both Google Calendar and Infusionsoft. Both of them are, and by way of Google Calendar, then Time Trade, and it's free busy schedule. Okay, so that's what happens. That's like the big picture. Now, the other thing is, the same thing happens essentially when someone reschedules or cancels. Okay, so either they call the office, the assistant reschedules them. The system sees it as a reschedule because we have our mark it as a reschedule. We tag it as an activity type reschedule. The system picks it up, says, "Oh, look, this appointment's been updated. Oh, it's a reschedule. Okay, when I reschedule, fine, the cron waits. Oh, look, here's a reschedule." It has certain things that it does with a reschedule. It resets those fields. It puts the new date in there. It runs the reminders. It takes them out of the old reminder sequence, adds them back in for the new date. Blah 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 blah. Right, and then does the same updates that event over here in Google Calendar, changes it in Google Calendar. And then same thing if they use an email link, which they get in all of their reminders being generated by Infusionsoft. There's a reschedule and a cancel link. So from Time Trade, if they happen to click that link instead of calling to reschedule, same thing. It goes to Time Trade. Time Trade updates it in Google Calendar. Bill's Time Fusion sends it over here to Infusionsoft, right? So same kind of premise there, and also the same for cancel, right? Only instead of resetting and putting them back in the reminder sequence, in this case, we cancel the appointment, but then put them in a sequence saying, "Hey, and we're waiting for them to reschedule." We nag them until they reschedule. Um, so, in a nutshell, that is what we call appointment bliss. And the really nice thing about this is, from the client's perspective, is that they only have to touch something once, right? And that is here. Oops, in this column. So if someone's calling, or they're entering things manual, they don't have to think about where they put the appointment in. They don't have to worry all that about, is it gonna, is the right stuff going to end up in the right field? Is it going to run? Oh, I have to like copy this and paste it over here into the campaign builder fields. No, right? All you do is you put it in either my day or the contact, doesn't matter which or how, right? As long as you do it and you spell it all right, right? You put it in there, and then after that, everything to the left of this just runs. That's it. You never touch anything to the left. Over here, you have the beauty of, if the client is using this, right, or the prospect is using this, same thing. You don't ever touch it, but you don't have to go to two different places. Oh, this one's in my Infusionsoft calendar. Oh, wait, is there another one in my Google Calendar? Nope. So both of these things stay synced up. So really, this is your only touch, and the rest is all set it and forget it. And that is why we call it appointment bliss. So I will be happy to entertain any questions that you have about that. First question: can you do all this without Time Fusion and or Time Trade? No, absolutely not. Now you could do this part, you could do these two columns right here, you could go from here to here, and just have the campaigns running, um within, but not, if you want the ability for someone to create their own appointments, you're going to need something, you're going to need appointment core or time trade, time fusion, something. You cannot. Now, well, let me rephrase that. Could I build this stuff here? That, of course I could, right? Time trade built it, and Bill built time fusion. But why, for what, what little we pay for those two to go reinvent the wheel makes absolutely no sense. It's far, 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 far cheaper. They've already figured it all out, right? So, and it does the job, and it does it beautifully. So why, why we just, we pay them for that expertise happily. Could we? Sure, we could, but it would cost a lot of money, and this is much more economical. But could you, without doing that, without building out all of this, could you do it without those? No. You gotta have all of these pieces somehow to make all this work. Okay, let's see, next question. um okay, Christina says, she doesn't know if I said it in the beginning. What version of time fusion did you use? um yes, I did not say that in the beginning. And let me pull up, let me just pull up. Did you ask time trade or time fusion? You asked time fusion. See Bill's website here. And Tom could give you the whole, or Bill could give you the whole rundown here. Uh, we are not using light, but where is your standard? We are using standard, time fusion standard. We are not using unlimited. What? Let me think. What does this do? Wait, maybe we are. No, I take that back. Yeah, we're using, yeah. Hang on, I gotta look. No limit on campaign goal triggers, unlimited appointment types, appointment set, rescheduled, canceled. All the features plus one appointment type can have oh, yeah, no. We're using unlimited for sure. $14.95 a month. For that time fusion. Bill says, he's just chimed in that probably light is all that is needed. And so, correct me if I'm wrong. I should have taken my contacts out before I did this. It's hard for me to read that because I've still got my faraway eyes in. But yeah, so Bill's saying that, probably all you need is light, unless that you need the custom fields filled in, with those dates and times to drive the campaign, which which we obviously did. And the other thing, I think, the other reason we went with unlimited for this client is because of no limit on campaign goal triggers. This had one appointment type with a campaign goal trigger, and this guy had a multiple 5 or 6, uh, is what is. So that's also why, no limit on custom build. Yeah. So, and really, you guys, like $14.95 a month, if your business is appointment appointment centric, you're a doctor, a lawyer, a therapist, mechanic. I can't even think of all the bazillions of people who are, an investment advisor, right? Anyone who uses, I mean, the ability to manage those appointments without having to manage them is worth a tremendous amount of money to you. And 14.95 is, in my view, of course, negligible, in relation to the time savings. Um, Good. Yeah, Chris. Good. Christina says that that's unlimited. That would be is important. That's what she chose as well. Okay. Good. 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 And thanks, Bill, for the input. Okay. So Richard says, how does Time Fusion know that Time Trade has made an appointment in Google Calendar? I don't know. Bill, how does I haven't even really thought about that. I probably would if I thought, but since we have Bill here, Bill, how does Time Fusion know that Time Trade's made an appointment in Google Calendar? I assume, by the way, here's what I assume, and you can tell me if I'm right. Google Calendar actually has what Infusionsoft doesn't, which is the ability to watch. And when something is updated, it automatically fires or triggers. So I'm guessing that Bill uses that watch feature in their API, but actually, let's read his answer and see what he says. Oh, oh, so you're doing it a totally different way. Probably because they added the watch feature fairly recently, I bet, and because you were probably doing this well before that. That's right. Of course, I did actually know this. Yeah, Bill reminds me that Time Fusion intercepts the confirmation email from Time Trade. So what he does is he gives you an email address. Um, that all the confirmation emails from Time Trade go to first. Bill parses that email, I guess, and then uses that information to send to Infusionsoft, and then sends it on to you. So you don't really notice it because it's just making a stop at with Bill, but he's grabbing that information and using it. Um, um, yeah. Oh, and he makes another good point. So I probably just should have you on the call here, Bill. Time Trade supports Outlook and iCal too. Good, which is a good point. We actually are just using it with Google Calendar. But the other thing I would say is that Google Calendar does fairly recently have that new watch function. And so it's basically like a imagine like a watched folder, or it just sits there. It's basically a cron, right? So instead of having a script running, it's just sitting there and it says, has anything changed, has anything changed? And then when it's also sometimes called a webhook. So when something is either updated or added, then it fires. And so you could now use that too, which we're using for some other things actually, but not for this. So that would also be a possibility. But yeah, that's easy. Just grab that grab that email and parse it. I forgot about that. Okay, good. All right, very cool. Good. Glad you like that. Oh, good. All right. Christina's talking about how well Time Trade and Google Calendar and Time Fusion are working together, and that okay, she's going to get her campaigns connected. So that's good. Okay, good. So just some comments, a couple more comments. Any other questions about this? And for those of you, I will ask you a question. How many of you on this call are here just kind of because you're interested, or how many of you specifically wrestle with one or more aspects of this process that Infusionsoft won't do, and we're therefore interested in how to solve that? Just let me know in the questions if that's uh-huh. Okay. So we got yeah, no, I don't necessarily mean that you're, writing code. I just mean as a user of Infusionsoft or a consultant to users, how often do you deal with this issue? Some piece of it where, you want to run a campaign off of an appointment, and it's just the data's not there. I mean, that would seem to be like the most obvious thing. How do I run a reminder off of an appointment? I can't. Now, I mean, I can run a generic one, but I can't run it off the field timer, um, right? But yeah, so I mean, I'm getting answers all over. A lot of people say that they are wrestling or dealing with it. Some couple are just interested. Yep. Okay, a couple people trying to talk their clients into into time trade or another solution. Yeah, a bunch of people want linking calendars, want two-way syncs. Awesome. Yes, Caitlin. It does absolutely. I don't. Once you set this up, we never touch it again. It just runs basically forever. You set it in the appointment in Infusionsoft, and it updates on Google Calendar. And even if they, what we encourage, right, is because in our reminder emails we include a time trade link for them to reschedule or cancel their own appointment. And if they do that, we won't see that either. It will send a notification, just letting us know that they did. And here, if they cancel, it will keep nagging them until they reschedule, and then eventually, if it runs through the end of the sequence and they still haven't rescheduled, then there's another sequence there to try to, catch them back up. But the point being, if I didn't want to, if I just, like, trust this thing to run, I don't really even need those notification emails. Like, people, I'll just look at my calendar. If I'm him, right? I look at my calendar every hour after each appointment, and boom, there's the next one. And if someone's not there anymore, it's because they've rescheduled or they've canceled or they've, if to the extent that people use these links, we don't ever even have to talk to them or touch them again. Now, very often what happens is they actually, and this is something that we're talking about now fixing with this Tel API. What actually happens is very often they, instead of using these links before, because before he didn't have these links, right, is they would text him and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I want to reschedule." And that was like total productivity killer for him. So one of the things that we're looking to do is now start to which we can do with Tel API, is we're going to start here intercepting those text messages and reading them, parsing them, and looking for certain words like directions, reschedule, cancel, etc., and then sending them to a link from their mobile, where they can do that themselves instead of him having to manage all those text messages, because that's, like, again, total waste of his time or his assistant's time. So we're trying to get all those offline ways that people make these appointments, and kind of corral them and get them organized so that they're all funneling back into this workflow. The only one that should be manual would be if they call the office and the assistant does it, or because he needs to reschedule or what have you. That might also be the case, where he has to reschedule, not them. So we're trying to get them to do their own. Now, there's some argument, right? In fact, we had a big discussion about this. Really, I really want to put a reschedule and cancel link in my reminder emails? Because aren't I encouraging them? Aren't I making it easy for them to cancel on me or to reschedule? Well, yeah, you could argue that, but the other argument is, look, they're going to do it anyway. Having that link there is not necessarily, I don't think, gonna tip them over the edge. And if they do, the lost productivity of you having to, like, go in the calendar and change the calendar, and, oh, but you're really busy today, and by the time you don't. By the way, here's another thing that like, I haven't talked to him about, but here's the other cool thing you could build off of this, right? Which is, guess what, as soon as somebody hits the reschedule link, or even here, but primarily here, guess what if you've got people who want to be worked in? You've got a list of work-ins. You could also run a sequence there. It's almost like a little round robin, right? Where we run a script and we say, "Hey, Debbie, we just had a cancellation today, 2 o'clock. It's yours if you want it. Let us know in the next 30 minutes. Oh, haven't heard from Debbie. Okay, Joe, we have a cancellation." So you could actually also automate the refilling of these appointments. And for somebody who bills by the hour, that also would be really, really, that would be appointment bliss too. We have not done that yet. but would be a really easy, easy thing to build off the back of this for reschedules. But again, my point is, the whole point of this is, right, this is, again, if I'm somebody who bills by the hour, which is, if I set appointments, whether I'm a hairdresser or a therapist or a lawyer or whatever, then my what I'm selling is time. And therefore, all the time that I spend, any time I spend dealing with this or even having an assistant deal with this, is a profit leak. It's profit leaking out of my practice. And so what this does, right, is this plugs that profit leak to a at a very economical price for a very very in a very easy way. So really, you should really not be touching these appointments if you are if you're billing hourly. That is not what you want to be doing. Really unproductive time. So yeah, that's a long answer to your question, Caitlin. Sorry. But yes, absolutely, set it and forget it. And now occasionally you might, go back and kind of tweak some verbiage or something in one of your reminder emails or whatever. But yeah, you should not have to touch it. Okay. All right, and let's see, keep going. Yes. Um, so how so Mike says, how would this work if I have referral partners or affiliates on one Infusionsoft application with individual appointment needs, and that you're using Appointment Core? So I'm thinking that you're saying like, I guess the part I'm unclear about is, are you saying like continuing to use Appointment Core? How would this work? Or if I switch to Time Trade, would that work? I'm not sure about what the Appointment Core part is about. But so I'll just address it, from this perspective. So, it just adds one more layer to this for me. Now, I'd have to think about, I don't know. And Bill, if you're still here, maybe you can comment on this from the time trade, time fusion side, about dealing with multiple people and multiple calendars. Are you able to do that on your, with, putting it in individual user calendars? I'm sure I could look on your website. But since this particular client didn't have that need, it was just a single guy. I didn't even look at that. But on from this way, going right to left, that's pretty easy to manage. It's just extra step where now we have to say, whose calendar, who's the owner, who's the appointment with, and then add that information. So you'd add that to the custom field. So now it would say, potentially you have an appointment with Bob, on Thursday at 4:30 p.m. And now we would be having to differentiate and say, oh, this has to go on Bob's Google Calendar, whereas this other appointment here has to go on Stan's Google Calendar. And Stan and Bob would probably, I would think, have their own version of Time Trade. Oh, that's exactly what, yeah. See, that's exactly what Bill just said. Each user needs a Time Trade account and a Time Fusion account, but they can all point into the same Infusionsoft account. Yeah, I mean, even as I said it, I realized that was the only way it was going to work, because Time Trade can't differentiate between calendars. So each one would have their own link. Stan would have a link, Bob would have a link. Each would go to their calendar, but then from there, my scripts would say, oh, this is Stan, oh, this is Bob, and it would work that way. So going right to left, you could do that single Infusionsoft account to the appropriate Google Calendar. Here you would have to have multiple Time Fusion accounts. Okay. 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 Let's see. Oh, and then how, so your question too, Mike, how, how complicated is adding API function when you have referral partners? Um, it depends. I mean, referral partners are just a different piece of data, you know. So in theory, it's really not all that more complicated. It's just, again, it's just another layer that you got to look at. Um, but are you talking about, so those are those referral partners users? Are they having appointments set with them? Which is different than just having referral partners. I don't, but the data is there, so it's just a question of, so this is just a script. It's going to go out and get whatever data you want, and it's going to put it where you want it. So if that means you've also got to go grab, who were they referred by, or who's their owner, or whatever, then you can do that too. Of course, every additional piece of data adds to the complexity and adds to the cost, and adds to the potential for something to break. But it's all there. It's just data in a table. Oh well, if they're users, then it's just like what we were talking about. Okay, let's see. Um okay. What if you have? Yep. So the question is about recurring appointments. They recur every week, and you just want to send out a reminder text the day before their appointment. Is this how you do that? Um, okay, and that's a separate question. So the recurring appointments, um, so y- yes and no. If you want these um to be like, set it and forget it appointments, because right, Infusionsoft, I just have to confirm, but Infusionsoft does not have recurring appointments, right? um they have, here's our appointment. um Nope, they do have recurring appointments. There we go. Recurrence: daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, range of occurrence. Uh, Interesting question. So, what we would have to do there is, yes and no, right? Um, what you would have to do there is, on our side, we could grab that again. It's just data. It's just a piece of data, right? So, now I don't know. You'd have to figure it out, because how does that show up? Is it a new appointment? Does it have the same appointment ID? Is it showing updated? Whatever, somewhere in there, you have to just figure out how do you grab it. Whatever you need to do to find it and grab it here, that's fine. So once you figure it out, oh, we've got recurring appointments. Okay, great. So now, same thing every week or every whatever. It's just another appointment. It's just a different way of grabbing the data. It's really kind of the same answer that I gave earlier about the referral partners. It's just just another piece of data. That's what you're building for. So you write your script to go find that, once you figure out how to get it right. Um, However, and you can get it all the way over here to the Google Calendar. That part is not a problem. Going this way, well, I mean, yeah, time trade. I'll just look with Bill. Yeah. Oh, see, Bill's already there. Johnny on the spot. Yeah. See, time trade doesn't have any recurring appointment. So it would not work going this way online. They couldn't create their own appointments in time trade. So, but this piece here, these three, if you made the appointment manually, right? Um, or or the other option here, which would be not that hard to do, right? So now you're starting to kind of write things from scratch to solve. Okay, so let's just say that here we have a form, out on. So we're gonna start. Oh no, you know what we would do? Here's, so let's just say that we have a this is like going to get kludgy. And by the way, I'm doing this, by the seat of my pants on the fly. So it might not be exactly this. You'd have to figure it out. But it would be the way that we treat the way we treat recurring orders. Basically, you could do a couple of different things. So like for those of you who've never heard me talk about this, we never ever, I don't want to say ever, but probably never to my knowledge have we used recurring subscription orders in Infusionsoft. Um, we always do them outside of Infusionsoft. And so what happens is when you choose, everything is a one-time order. But when you choose recurring, we write to a MySQL database the fact that this is a recurring order, what's the frequency, and when is the next billing date, and then a cron runs and picks that up and uses place order and puts that into Infusionsoft as a one-time order. So you could kind of come up with some sort of a similar concept here where you said, oh, okay, I'm going to show you a time trade calendar, with availability, with the understanding that that's your first appointment, you know and then I'm going to give you as a thank you page, if you will, or a second step, maybe as a first step, I don't know, a form that says, is this recurring? Again, depend on the use case. Maybe you just assume it's recurring, I don't know. But anyway, some way of saying, this is a recurring appointment. And then so they make the first one here, and they can actually, and it still sends them the reminders and stuff, because it's here and it's in your campaign. But then what's going to happen is, then after that first recurring, it's going to pick it up and loop back this way for the second one. Programmatically, it's going to create it and go this way. And it's still kind of kludgy because, you know, I don't know. I had to think about that. That might be more trouble than it's worth. But you'd have to kind of figure out what you want and how important is this part over here. Again, this part, the recurring part, no problem. This part, we kind of have to play with that and just see how you can make that work. But in terms of just sending the reminder text, sure, that part's easy. That's this. Boom, recurring appointment. Figure out the script, send the reminder. Boom, send the reminder. Boom, just those loop through. You just got to figure out how to write that script to find it, to constantly keep every week updating that campaign, that field in the custom field, and you'd be set. Are we able to do a reminder text message that they say reply yes to confirm or reply no to reschedule? We did not build that in here at the present time. And maybe even that's when you start thinking about fix your funnel or time fusion. They may actually have that already built in. I'm not sure. I didn't look that hard. But we also could also build that in here with the Tell API. Same thing. You just read the reply. It's sort of like reading the text and saying, does it, have the word directions in it? If so, I'm going to just assume that's what they're asking and send them directions, and along with a note that says, if this wasn't what you were asking about, please call the office or something. So, the idea of having kind of a little text conversation, as long as it's very structured, you could certainly build that with, something like Tell API. But it's also very possible that that's already been built for you by someone like Jake or Ryan at one of those other two guys. You'd have to go look at that. But is it possible? Yes. Is it out of the box anywhere? We'd either have to build it or get it from one of them. Okay, let's see, next one. Hang on. What? Okay. I really should have taken my contacts out. A client is in one series of appointments, and before that series ends up switching, upgrading to another series of appointments. How would you automate the canceling of the remaining appointments in series A and begin scheduling appointments in series B? We actually do that. Actually, that's exactly what we do here, Troy. It was not covered prior. But that's exactly what happens here. So for us, we assume if someone reschedules that they're rescheduling an appointment in the future, right? uh, Otherwise it was a no-show, and we treat that differently. So by definition, a reschedule means it's an appointment in the future, and therefore, unless it's 5 minutes before the appointment, well, really, they're still in that reminder campaign for the current appointment. So what we do is when someone reschedules, we use a kill switch, which everyone, most of us use. Of course, a kill switch for us is a tag, that is applied, that gets that it just ends the sequence that they're in. Boom. So we apply a kill switch tag, and then automatically, and then restart them in the sequence again, in the reminder sequence, which, because the dates have already been changed and stuff in the custom fields, then is fine. They start at the beginning of the sequence, and depending on where they are, off they go. If it's tomorrow, or 3 hours from now, or 2 weeks from now, those will all work. um Now, the difference in what you said is, you said, in a different sequence, which is, that would be easy to do too. Instead of firing the API goal to put them back in the same reminder sequence, you would just fire the API goal to put them in a different one. So in that case, it's a reschedule, basically, but rescheduling for a different activity type with a different sequence. So therefore, same kill switch, but a different start switch, different start API goal to get them over here. Yeah, that's what we call it, a kill switch. Good. I'm glad that concept helped. There's kind of some certain things that we always have as sort of a best practice. Um, one are kill switches, and another are breadcrumbs, and another is railroad sidings. I like descriptive names, and so those are just kind of like three kind of standard things that we tend to put in our campaigns and in our sequences, because almost all of them need them. Um, okay, let's see what else. Good, good. All right. Um, Christina, I do not understand your question about. I don't know if you provide general ideas to implement coding in campaign. I don't. I'm not. I don't. I don't understand that. I don't understand what you're asking on that one. Oh. Um. Oh. What is our fee to set this up? Like this particular campaign? Uh. Yeah, I would say probably. You know. I don't. I don't want to. You know. I'm an ex professional speaker in a former life, and one of our rules was, you don't sell from the stage. So, but the API guys um, obviously do this work. This is client work for us. So, if this is something you're interested in, just go fill out our request form on our website, theapiguys.com, and say, because quite honestly, every, I could give you a ballpark, what this costs, but everybody's different. Some people need all of this, some people need little pieces of it, some yours might be more complex, less complex, and I don't want to give out numbers and then have it be really, really, really wrong. So okay. Um, yeah. Yeah, it's not railroad crossing. It's a railroad. It's a railroad siding. But at least that's what I call it. So let me see. I'll just show it to you just for whatever. And actually, credit where credit is due. If I'm not mistake, I could be wrong. I believe I actually got this idea from Raven Howard. This was I don't think she didn't call it a railroad siding, but I believe this was her idea maybe. Um, but it basically looks like this. When the issue is whenever you have a tag goal, um, especially when that tag is being let's say that let me do it this way. Let's imagine that out here you had a an API goal here, uh, something like that, right? And then you had a sequence, and then oops, and then part of that sequence um, applied a tag, and that tag fulfilled this goal, right? And then you, as a result of that goal being fulfilled, you want them to keep going down your track, right? Like this. Um, but, but, um, oh, sorry. Actually, it's only applies when you need to do it like this, right? So let's just okay. So let's just say we have like this. Sorry, I missed something. All right, probably didn't need that. All right, so this tag's going to be applied, and then you shoot them through here, and then what comes next is a decision diamond. This is where I was going. Okay, now the problem that you have with these, or can have for those, if you haven't noticed, and so this decision diamond is going to be based on the application of that tag, right? That's happening right there in that sequence. And the problem is that those stupid um, tags can sometimes be really, really slow, right? So, to happen, right? And so what we do is, and I'm actually probably explaining this wrong because I'd have to think about where we actually use. But anyway, we do this, okay? And then what we say is, because what we need is we need that tag to be applied for, or sorry, yeah, duh. All right, I like totally screwed this up. Here, what it is, that it's not a tag. It's that a value is getting processed. It needs to have a value there, right? Or something. And so, and that value sometimes isn't there yet, or that tag's not there yet. And so what we do is we say here, we put a decision diamond, and we say if, okay, here, right? If that thing is not there, whether it be the tag, right? If they don't have the tag, if if tags doesn't contain the one that we need, right? Because it's, I don't even know what tags I've got. Okay, because it hasn't been fired yet, because those can be sometimes slow, right? Then I'm going to go down here, and all that we do, and that's why we call it a railroad siding. And then all we do here is we put a delay timer of 15 minutes, right? Uh, just to let it sit there and have time for that tag or that value to get applied. And that's it. And it's just going to assume that in the next 15 minutes that's going to happen. But that assuming it happens quickly, as it's supposed to, then boom, it goes where it needs it to go. So all it's doing is saying this needs a tag, or more likely a value, right? So it's saying, but the value is being set programmatically or somehow, and that can be slow. And so we just say, I'm gonna check to see. This is almost like error handling. Does that value exist? If no, I'm gonna just run them down here into the railroad siding and let them sit and cool their heels for 15 minutes while the other trains that are set properly keep going by. And then then they raise the thing and whoop, off they go. So that's just a way for it to, if it doesn't have what it needs, then to sit and wait for that, to give it a chance to be applied, and then send it, but not stop everything with the delay timer, because a lot of times it's there, right? And so you just send it anyway. I like totally goobered that whole thing up. It makes a lot more sense when you're building the campaign and you go, yep, need a railroad siding here. But anyway, but that's what I meant, and that's why we call it, this is a train track, and then this is it sitting on the railroad siding. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, what else? Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, cool. Well, so one of my objectives for this webinar series is just, you know, when I first started working with the API and talking to people about it, because I got, what did I do with my, I've lost it, with my PDF. I might have closed it. I did. Well, so, and I talked to people and I was really excited about, the potential for the API and the things that we could do with it. And like, finally I can solve all these problems with, that make Infusionsoft do all these things that it won't do. And, and I would talk to people about it. I'm like, wow, isn't this cool? And they're like, they'd be like, yeah, API, I mean, I've heard of API, but I don't know what it is. And I never want to code, and I don't really know what I can do with it. And really that's the key for these masterminds is I think, every time I hear the word workaround, I just cringe, because what I know is that 9 times out of 10, what we're doing is we're like either bending something and making something do something it's not supposed to do, to try to create this workaround. We're constantly telling a client, oh, well, I know you, I wish I had that thing, like the solution. This is not it, but let me see if I can find it. Oh, hang on. That's not what I want. Where is that darn thing? So the solution on my flow chart, right, for that two-way Google Sync was to say, well, instead of entering your appointments in My Day where you want to and where is logical because you're paying, thousands of dollars, for this software, but the software can't do that. So instead, why don't you just enter your appointments, in on your website or in a web form, so that, like, as if you were a client, so that it then goes through time trade and time fee. What? Like, so and not the problem isn't with the advice. The problem is with the idea that we, you when I just don't want to tell a client that. Like, oh yeah, I know how much you paid for this thing, but I'm sorry, you have to do this kludgy thing to make it work the way that your business works. And I, I don't, I think that what we're trying to do, if at all possible, is make it bend to the way that the client's business works, if you're a consultant like me, or to your business if you're a user, rather than the other way, bending your business processes to match what Infusionsoft can do. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so when I hear workaround, what that means to me is that, we're trying to bend the business process to fit Infusionsoft. So, and I think that is largely because either, number one, people don't know that these things are possible. In fact, almost anything is possible with enough of a budget and enough imagination. Um, if you can dream it, we can do it. But the other thing is, I think people have a tendency to look at these things, and I think budget is always also an issue. And they look at things, and they, look, some of these things might cost a couple $100. Some of these things might cost a couple $1,000. Some of our things we've done are, high five figures, right? But the thing is, because they didn't, because the value, the lifetime value was there. You have to look at it and say, what is this pain point? What is this thing we're going to try to solve? This problem we're trying to solve, how much does that cost you? And if the time or productivity or customers or lost, or are worth more than than what it's going to cost you to create a solution, then then let's make the solution. And so I my goal is to help people know what's possible, and to get them to think in their own business, to not just accept, but to think, wow, I bet we could solve this, a little creativity, a little code, I bet we could solve this. But also to say, okay, should we solve this? What is this worth? What does this cost me? What's the opportunity cost? And what would it cost me to fix it? And then to weigh those two things against each other and make a rational business decision about yes or no. Because not everything does make sense. If there's no real loss, then you might just, you might leave it, and that workaround might be fine. But if it's really costing you money, then chances are you can fix it for far less than what it's costing you. So that's the other piece that I really want to start to get people, just bring up the general level of awareness with people, is that it's possible. In many cases, it does not going to cost what you think. Sometimes it's going to cost more, but we do have that too, of course. But a lot of times it costs less. So you never know until you at least start to think about the options, and know what's possible. So that's it. That's what I've got for you today. Thanks for coming to the API Mastermind. We're gonna do what was I just came up with a topic. Oh, you know what I think I'm going to do next week? I was just working on this last night. I thought it was kind of cool, and that is automating the job application process, which I was working on. And I thought, well, that this would be. I was actually doing it for us, and I thought, well, actually, I was really kind of like, wow, this is cool. Once I got done with it, so I thought, maybe in next week's mastermind, I'll show this. So tentatively, unless I come up with something that I think is more interesting, I will do that. But just keep your eyes open. Oh, Troy. Troy wants to see the chart. Hang on. See, I lost it. I was trying to show it. Hang on. Give me a second and I will find it. Chart. Here. I got it. There you go. Make, oops. Oops, hang on. It's kind of stuck here. All right. There's a chart with all my doodling on it. So yeah, so keep an eye on the API Learners group, or you can register on our website under Masterminds, theapiguys.com, or however else you found out about this. If you're on our email list, you'll get an email. So hopefully I'll see you guys on the next call. And of course, like the cobbler's children, I don't have an email sequence that goes out to you guys saying, "Is this helpful?" But I'd like to know if it was helpful. So send me your thoughts and comments in the either by email, or Kim at theapiguys.com, or whatever on Facebook. I would love, if there's anything that you'd like to see topic wise, anything you'd like to see me cover, anything you think we could do better to make this time spent more valuable, definitely love to hear that too. So all right, you guys, take care, have a great week, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.